In times of desperation, especially times of war, there is a need for heroes, and when things are truly desperate, you don't necessarily get to choose who those heroes are and where you find them. Eddie Chapman was one such hero. He was a criminal found in a Nazi prison during World War II. During his adult life, Eddie had served time in British prisons for a variety of crimes, ranging from fraud to going AWOL from the army. In fact, the reason for his being in Germany was that he fled there after blowing up a safe in a bank. Initially trained by the German Military Intelligence Agency, Chapman claimed he had always been planning to become a double agent and serve the Allies. MI5, the domestic British intelligence agency, doubted this and worked with him reluctantly, nicknaming him ZIG due to his ever-fluid loyalties. ZIG was, amongst other things, a master safecracker, a charmer, a spender of other people's money, and a voracious womanizer. These traits are reckoned by some to be, at least in part, the inspiration for Ian Fleming's James Bond, since at the same time that ZIG was a field agent, Fleming was working in a rather drier, more diplomatic role for UK naval intelligence as a spy. Chapman's greatest trick may have been to convince a regime as tyrannical as the Third Reich that he was as cruel, selfish, and amoral as them. Was Chapman selfish and immoral? Maybe, but by all accounts, Eddie was not cruel. To better understand Eddie Chapman's story, we need to know about a German organization called the Abwehr. The Abwehr was the military intelligence service of Nazi Germany, operating from 1920 to 1944. It was responsible for espionage, counter-espionage, sabotage, and other intelligence activities during both Weimar Republic and Nazi eras. The head of the Abwehr at that time, General Wilhelm Canaris, was in fact a critic of Hitler and later executed for apparent involvement in a plot to assassinate him. So maybe that was the reason ZIG was able to get by, despite not showing a level of cruelty equivalent to that of the Third Reich. ZIG trained for a year with the German Abwehr in sabotage and espionage. In December 1942, Chapman was literally dropped off in England by parachuting from a plane. He was instructed by the Germans to disappear into the criminal underworld, but instead, ZIG proceeded to hand himself over to the local police and MI5. After a thorough interrogation, he was recruited by MI5, something he claimed he had always wanted to do. Of course, the alternative, being executed by firing squad, is something very few people have an ambition for. What followed was a series of audacious operations working with fellow Maverick secret agent Jasper Maskelyne to fake a successful sabotage raid on the vital de Havilland aircraft factory in Hatfield, England in 1943. Although it has been rumored over the years that ZIG betrayed the operation, he did in fact help to make Operation Nightcap a success for the British, aiding Maskelyne to make the factory appear as though it had been damaged and taking false photographs back to the German authorities. He was awarded the Iron Cross for his service, the only British citizen to receive that particular German military decoration during the war. In late 1943, Eddie Chapman was involved in an operation in Lisbon, Portugal, where he exposed German-disguised sabotage explosives. This event took place during his time as a double agent, working for both the British and the Germans. After successfully faking the sabotage at the de Havilland factory, the Germans sent Chapman on another mission. He was instructed to travel to Lisbon, a neutral location during the war, under the guise of returning to Germany. While in Lisbon, Chapman was ordered by his German handlers to carry out an act of sabotage. He was provided with explosive devices disguised as lumps of coal, which were intended to be placed in the coal bunkers of Allied ships. These disguised explosives were designed to detonate and cause severe damage once the coal was shoveled into the ship's boilers. Instead of carrying out the sabotage, Chapman revealed the German plan to his British handlers. To maintain his cover, he handed over the explosives to the captain of the British merchant ship he was traveling on. The British authorities then staged a fake investigation, making it appear as though the sabotage attempt had been thwarted purely by chance. The incident was part of a broader British effort to maintain Chapman's credibility with the Germans while preventing actual damage to Allied operations. By exposing the German plot and coordinating with British intelligence, Chapman was able to continue his role as a trusted double agent. The Germans were not aware of Chapman's betrayal and continued to trust him, eventually awarding him the Iron Cross for his supposed successes. This further cemented his value as a double agent for the British. Chapman had, by all accounts, a relaxing year after that. He taught in a German spy school in Norway, fell in love, and was recalled back to England in 1944 after the success of Operation Overlord, which involved the Allied invasion of Normandy and marked the beginning of the liberation of Western Europe from Nazi occupation. Eddie Chapman played a significant role in misleading the Germans about the effectiveness of their V-1 and V-2 rocket attacks on London. After the D-Day landings in June 1944, the Germans sent Chapman back to Britain to report on the damage caused by their vengeance weapons, the V-1 and V-2 rockets. Operating under British control, Chapman provided the Germans with false reports. He exaggerated the number of casualties and damage caused by the rockets, which misled the Germans into believing that their attacks were hitting central London effectively. In reality, the bombs were falling on less populated areas, resulting in fewer casualties and less damage than the Germans had intended. This deception likely saved many lives and reduced the overall effectiveness of the German rocket attacks. Chapman's actions during this time were a critical part of the British disinformation campaign aimed at protecting London and other key targets from further destruction. The great conundrum of ZIG was that the German military intelligence, by all accounts, loved him, gifting him great sums of money, the Iron Cross, even a yacht, while in the British intelligence, an MI5 officer described him thus: "Chapman loved himself, loved his country, and loved adventure, probably in that order." But ZIG loved more than just his country and himself during the war. He was betrothed to 2 separate women in 2 different nations. Freda Stevenson he met in Germany while training with the Abwehr, but there was also Dagmar Lahorn in Norway, neither woman of course aware of the other. In the end, he chose Freda, despite having made promises to return to Norway for Dagmar. Dagmar's story took a sad turn when she was later tried as a Nazi collaborator and sentenced to 6 months in prison. It just goes to show that while Eddie Chapman was brave in the face of wartime danger, when faced with love, he was seductive and fickle. In the end, he married Freda, and together they moved to the UK after the war. When the fighting was officially over, ZIG became his old Chapman self again and made a deal with MI5 to retire, with a full pardon, thousands of pounds of money from both the British and German governments, and signing the Official Secrets Act. At one point, ZIG's Abwehr payments received were rumored to be over £100,000. MI5 notes revealed a vain hope that he would quietly retire and not go back to his criminal activities. A vain hope indeed. Chapman was involved in a range of criminal activities, but never convicted for most, from smuggling gold to supposedly running a safe-cracking school, also rumored to be held in a health farm that he ran with his family during the 80s. A health farm is a facility where individuals go to improve their health and well-being through a combination of diet, exercise, and relaxation therapies. After the war, Chapman published his memoirs detailing his exploits as a double agent, which led to legal issues. In 1953, he was charged under the Official Secrets Act for disclosing classified information and was fined £50 for his actions. Despite this, he continued to tell his story, which eventually led to the publication of several books and a movie based loosely on his life called Triple Cross. Chapman was truly proof that the right person for the job appears when you need them most, or as they say, cometh the hour, cometh the man, even when, sometimes, that man is a little bit crooked.